Hi, my name is John Platt. I'm a sales rep and product specialist here with USA Industries. In this video, we're going to be discussing far-end, also known as through-the-tube plugging for the Snap-it plug. Before we get into the items and tools you'll be using today for far-end or through-the-tube plugging, we first need to address safety. While utilizing these tools, you need to make sure you have all your proper PPE, such as proper eyewear, gloves, steel-toe boots, and any other PPE required. The items you will need for installing a Snap-it plug for through-the-tube plugging will first be an assembled ram puller and foot pump, just like we used in the near-end plugging installation video. Next, you will also need your Snap-it installation manual with the step-by-step instructions for the installation procedures that we're going to be going over today. The tooling that will be used for your far-end plugging is going to be your extension rods with a near-end pull rod and your compression tubing. Together, these make what's called a channel head pull rod assembly. In order to make it a far-end pull rod assembly, you need to add the reverse thread stud and your far-end plug coupling. Extension rods and compression sleeves come in size 1, size 2, and size 3. And they also come in 2 foot, 4 foot, and 6 foot increments. Today we're going to be using a size 1 channel head pull rod assembly because we're going to be installing a size 555 Snap-it Junior plug. Just as we had mentioned before, the Snap-it plug is a 3-piece plug. It has a pin, a ring, and a breakaway. Today we're not going to be using the breakaway. We're actually going to be using our far-end plug coupling to go with the far-end plug reverse threaded stud. The coupling and stud can be purchased separately at USA Industries. When you do purchase them, it'll be 1 coupling for every 10 reverse threaded studs. In order to install the size 555 Snap-it plug, you're going to need your size 555 plug positioner. Just like we did in the near-end installation video, you want to make sure that you have the side that says ram facing the ram and the side that says plug facing the plug before installing the Snap-it plug. Your next step, we're going to get the plug ready for far-end plugging by removing the breakaway and adding the stud and coupling. After you've removed the breakaway, you want to then add your reverse threaded stud. Once the stud is securely fastened into the ID of the pin, you want to then add your coupling. So now that the stud and coupling is added to the plug, it is now ready to be added to the far-end pull rod assembly and install the Snap-it plug. When you're putting this on, you want to make sure you do it by hand. You do not need to use a wrench or anything to install the connect the plug to the channel head pull rod assembly. Now that you have connected the plug to the channel head pull rod assembly, it is now time to insert the assembly into the body of the ram. First thing you want to do is remove your safety nut as well as your expansion nut. Just like you did in the near-end installation video, you're going to have the threaded portion of the pull rod go into the body of the ram. This is the back side of the ram, which means it will be away from the tube sheet. From there, you're going to connect your expansion nut. While you're tightening down the expansion nut, you want to make sure that the spacer is inserted into the ID of the ram. Okay, we'll tighten this down hand tight. Once you have it hand tight, you want to then take your safety cable. Put the safety cable on the near-end pull rod and then tighten that down with your safety cable nut. Just like you did in the near-end installation video, the safety cable nut will be touching the expansion nut. Now that we have the channel head pull rod assembly assembled into the body of the ram, you're now ready to install a plug. First, I want to address the fact that we are not utilizing a brush kit like we did on the near-end installation. The reason being is you cannot get the brush kit all the way down the ID of the tube to the back tube sheet. So you want to make sure those tubes are as clean as possible, whether you use a flex shaft cleaner or have them lance out. Definitely want to make sure that the ID of the tubes are as clean as possible for the installation of the Snap-it plug.
Before placing the Snap-it Junior plug and extension assembly into the tube, you need to set and tighten the depth stop to the correct position on the extension rod. Be sure that the plug is installed within the far end tube sheet. In the case of our heat exchanger, we need to verify that the tube displacement, or full length from tube sheet face to tube sheet face, is 168 inches. Again, in the case of our heat exchanger, we need to verify that the tube sheet is 1.5 inches thick, and then divide that number by 2, which equals 3/4 of an inch. Finally, we need to subtract the two measurements in order to obtain the exact depth that the plug needs to be installed. So 168 inches minus 3/4 of an inch equals 167 1/4 inches. Using the calculated depth of 167 1/4 inches, measure the middle of the ring on the plug to the calculated depth and mark this point on the compression tube. Now, tighten the depth stop ring over the compression tube at this marked point.
So what we want to do now is insert the plug into the ID of the tube. You want everything to be as parallel and level as possible with the tube that you are installing. You want to make sure that you do not let this go, as you can potentially break your channel head pull rod assembly. As I mentioned earlier, for a size 555 Snap-it Junior plug for far in or through the tube plugging, you're going to run up the hydraulic foot pump to 3000 psi. From there, we are going to decompress it, then run it up a second time. You run up a second time after you've tightened everything down. There will be some slack here. You will tighten it down with the expansion nut. You want to make sure that your hands are out of the way of the safety cable and no one is behind you or near you while you're installing this plug. I just ran it up to 3000 psi, and I'm going to tighten everything down with the expansion nut. After it's tightened down with the expansion nut, you want to tighten your safety cable back down to where it touches the safety cable and the expansion nut. Once again, make sure your hands are free of the safety cable and no one is around you for the second part. Now I'm going to run it back up to 3000 psi a second time. After you run up a second time, you want to decompress.
The Snap-it Junior tube plug has just been installed in the far end of the tube sheet. As the ram and pump applied the stated pressure, the pin was being pulled back through the ring, causing it to expand and collapse against the wall of the tube, creating a reliable seal.
When taking everything apart, you want to first remove your safety cable. You're going to back the safety cable nut off. Take off the safety cable, back the expansion nut, and remove the ram from the channel head pull rod assembly with your spacer. When you're removing the channel head pull rod assembly out of the ID of the tubes, please be aware of the reverse thread stud. As you can see, we were able to get everything out of the ID of the tubes. You got your plug positioner, you have your coupling, and your full channel head pull rod assembly. Now we have successfully installed a Snap-it Junior 555 carbon steel Snap-it plug on the far end or through the tube plugging.